Hello everyone, welcome back to Too Sweet MTG. Welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Cube, specifically the state of my Cube and what I have learnt this year. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I know it's not a Commander video, but I do enjoy doing them because Cube is great. I am at my happiest when I'm tinkering and playing around with the Cube. I'll catch people up if this is the first video you are seeing on my Cube. So my Cube is a 540 unpowered vintage Cube. That basically means from a power level point of view, it has everything in it apart from super fast mana or really broken spells. So there's no Black Lotus, no Moxen, no Soul Ring, no Mana Crypt, no Time Vault, no Ancestral Recall, Time Walk, that kind of stuff. But everything else has been pretty fair game. The idea of this is that you still have powerful games of Magic, but there's less non-games. There's no player playing a 4-drop on turn 1, and it also means that the draft, for me anyway, is more interesting, as there's no, oh, there's power in this pack, this is an auto pick, I don't have to think about anything else. The goal with my Cube is that games shouldn't end because a player casts one particular card. I want people to do powerful things, but I want them to have to work a little bit for it. Nothing should just be free or a given. The other thing this does is it makes games slightly longer, and that means that mid-range gets to be more of a thing. Some in my playgroup might argue a bit too much of a thing, but that's the thing we're always trying to balance out. So I started this year with my Cube being possibly the most powerful it's ever been. The Cube started the year with things like Channel, Mishra's Workshop, Fast Bond, Lion's Eye Diamond, and Flash in my Cube. The main thing I spent most of the year doing is powering down my Cube a little. But I want games in my Cube to be interesting. I want players to be rewarded when they draft a deck. I really pushed the power of my Cube last year, and outside of fast mana and blue powered cards, my Cube was potentially as strong as you could make it. But with that, it is still important to find the right level of power for your Cube. In our playgroup, for a long time, mine was the only Cube, and a lot of my friends are on the spikier side of drafting, or like playing high-powered cubes. So my Cube drifted up in power level to kind of meet where my playgroup was. But then at the start of the year, my podcast co-host James built a powered Cube, meaning that mine didn't need to be as strong anymore. His Cube was scratching that high-powered itch that a lot of my playgroup was after, so I could go back to focusing more on archetypes and synergies, which is more what I like doing. So when I came to powering down my Cube, there was an easy place to start. For the first 6 months of the year, the same cards kept popping up in winning decks, over and over again. But it was also the style of decks that I wasn't really happy with. They weren't really synergistic, they were just fine decks with a couple of specific cards in them, which is not what I was really going for. Some of the first cards to go this year were ones that brought the initiative into the game. I was actually really early in running the initiative cards in Cube, and that's primarily because my wife was winning big legacy tournaments with them quite early on, and it definitely helped show me how broken these cards were. But I think I and a lot of Cubers have discovered over the last 18 months or so that if the initiative is in your Cube, then a lot of games are decided by who has the initiative for most of the game. It becomes what those games are about. And I'll be honest, I had a lot of fun games where me and my opponent were battling for the initiative back and forth, but I tend to like creature decks. The initiative really preys on decks that don't have creatures, so things like control decks, things like combo decks. Even aggro can struggle because the initiative creatures tend to block pretty well as well. When you're turning off so many decks, it became something I had to look at, so I did cut the initiative cards from my Cube. I do believe, however, that the most powerful version of a Cube has the initiative cards in it, and we're kind of seeing that now with the MitGo Vintage Cube. The regular Cube doesn't have initiative cards, but in the super high-powered level one that they're running, it does. Basically, in my Cube, the initiative has been banned to power. It's just too strong and too all-in for the type of Cube that I want to foster. Along with the initiative, there's also another group of cards that I've cut from my Cube because they were just too powerful for the environment I was trying to create. These are cards that, while not power, can just take over games and win them by themselves, and I found they were just putting up too consistent numbers. Non-synergistic decks that were just running these cards were just winning too often, and being honest, it made players not try other things in my Cube. Let's go through them quickly. Some easy cuts to my Cube were cards like Channel and Mishra's Workshop. They're either restricted in Vintage or probably should be restricted in Vintage. These cards should only be in the most powerful Cubes. They just let you do so many broken things early in the game. I think my thinking was that they do need to be built around, they don't work just by themselves. On to some of the newer cards next. Minsk and Boo first is just absolutely cracked. If you play this on turn 3 and your opponent doesn't have the ability to kill it straight away, you have basically won that game. Even if you have a way of answering the Planeswalker, they will still have a 4/4 trample haste for 4 mana. This just became pack one, pick one in my Cube so much of the time, which is not where I want gold cards to be in an unpowered Cube. In a similar vein, we have 4th Aeolingus. This is just another card that just won too many games of Magic just by itself. It's just so good at too many points in the game. The fact that some matchups you can just go 1-drop, play this for 0 on turn 2, and it's still really good is nuts. The main point when I knew it had to go was when my Dimir control decks were splashing for it. That is not how Dimir control is meant to go. Another Boros card that I had to cut was Comet Stellar Pup. I really don't like this card. People lost so many games from comfortable board positions to an opponent who would play this card, roll a 6 at some point over 2 turns, and then just win the game. The fact it's random as well really added to the feel-bads, on top of it being just a really strong card just by itself. Very strong card, but one for power. Next we have two cards that are sort of related, in Shieldred the Apocalypse and Orcish Bowmaster. Now, I really love the wheel deck, it's really fun and really unique. But the problem with these cards is they don't just go in the wheels deck. These were just cards that people were taking early because they were just really, really good. These are both cards that can just go into a Black X mid-range soup deck and will just be really strong. The Wheels deck wasn't getting these cards, other players snapped them up before them. By cutting them, it has left the Wheels deck in a bit of a weird place in my cube, as the damage side of things is basically not there anymore. It's meant it's had to focus more on the draw denial for your opponents type of thing, which is not as strong, but it is still solid. But the fact that Wheels go in other decks means that I'm okay with them. Then we have the probably soon to be banned in Modern, you would guess, One Ring, another card that is obviously incredibly strong, and it's just generically good. It goes in pretty much every deck, and this was a late cut compared to the others, but it did feel like a power outlier compared to everything else left in the cube. Once I'd made these changes, we quickly discovered that there was one deck that was left alone being more powerful than the rest of them, and that was Reanimator. This wasn't affected by any of the other cuts, so it quickly became the de facto best deck in my cube. Now, I personally love Reanimator, and didn't want to remove the best reanimation effects as they go into a bunch of other decks in my cube. What I ended up doing, which has actually worked pretty well, is cutting the three biggest reanimation targets from my cube. So that meant I cut Archon of Cruelty, Atraxa, and Grizzledaddy. These got replaced with threats that the deck can actually cast as well. And I still have a bunch of other large creatures in the cube to go with the Sneak Attack, Tinker, and Flash packages, so there is still plenty of big things for the reanimated player to cheat into play. So I've been talking a bunch about what I've been cutting from my cube, let's move on to what I've been adding, which is a little bit more fun. The main deck and archetype that I've been loving this year is the Jundi Delirium deck. This is something people have been mucking around with for quite a while, but this year with MH3, it's really taken off to being a cool and strong deck. Printing 3 new playable Goyfs has really helped out this archetype this year, along with a bunch of support cards being printed with cards like White of the Reliquary, Smuggler's Surprise, Malevolent Rumble, Twitching Doll, Six, and Ursine Monstrosity. There's just so many pieces on top of what was already a hell of an archetype, I've really loved it. The second type of deck that I've really enjoyed this year is one that a lot of cubers have been playing around with for literal decades at this point, but has really come to the fore this year. 2024 is really the year that as a community, I think we finally worked out how to get the most out of Flash. This has really changed the structure of my cube over the last 12 months. Flash combined with things like Sneak Attack and Through the Breach have become a really important consideration when I add something big, when I add a big creature to the cube. For a big sheet target to get in nowadays, it has to have either a strong ETB or Death Trigger. A card like Vaultborn Tyrant has been a great addition to that deck this year, alongside cards like Trumpeting Carnosaur and Atali Primal Conqueror that we got last year. In a similar vein to Flash, in that it's an old card that's got a new lease of life this year, is Dream Halls. I absolutely love this card, it is such a fun deck when it comes together. Like with Flash, I feel like this is the year where we found the way to get the most out of Dream Halls. We have our big payoffs, we have cards like Magma Opus and some Ultimatums and then Blood for the Blood God. Combine that with Wheels to keep our hand nice and full, and you've got a really scary deck. We've also worked out the redundancy as well, with cards like Mizzix's Mastery and Torrential Gearhulk, along with the backup plan of cards like Chrome Host Seed Shark and Shark Typhoon. It is a really fun deck. If you haven't tried it yet, I can't recommend testing it in your cube enough. It is phenomenal. Another deck I've really thought has come a long way this year is Selesnya +1/+1 counters. Selesnya has kinda sucked in more powerful cubes forever, and while we're not there yet, I think we're on the cusp of something really strong. We've already had cards printed like Luminok Aspirant and Siege Veteran. The Aspirant especially has just been one of the strongest white aggressive creatures ever printed. But this year alone, we've had cards like Reluctant Role Model, Glyph Elemental, Scythecat Cub, The Man Who Bristly Bill Spinesower, Mossborn Hydra, and Ornery Tumblewag. These are all very strong, cheap, aggressive threats. They kind of follow the lion/scavenging ooze style of counter creature in that they will just grow themselves. They don't need other creatures, they don't need other things. If they're not answered, they can just take over the game. The landfall creatures especially are really interesting, as we could be on the cusp of a cool landfall +1/+1 counter synergy strategy. Something that will actually be strong and unique to Selesnya. Like, being honest, any of the landfall creatures combined with a card like Knight of the Reliquary seems pretty good. I don't know how this deck works yet, but we have just seen a card like Black Panther Wakandan King printed. This cares about lands and counters, so the future is bright for Selesnya, and things are finally looking up for it as a colour pair. Then lastly, we should probably talk about the most broken card of the year in Nadu. A card that's been banned everywhere has found a good home in Cube. We've done a whole podcast episode on it, and it's a very fun archetype. You combine it with cards like Shuko and Lightning Greaves to activate it an absolute bunch. You add to it a card like Springheart Nantuko to make a bunch of tokens, And then you even have some redundancy with a card like Cephalid Illusionist. That combines with the Shuko and the Greaves to mill your whole deck out. This has been a really strong deck in my cube, with creature combos like Twin and Kiki Jiki falling off in power level, and Persist never really getting there. It's really nice to have a creature-based combo that actually works. I am actually expecting in the next couple of months to probably tone this down a little bit in my cube, as it's popped off every time that we've cubed with it, which isn't really the consistency I'm kind of looking for, so I could see a world where I cut Shuko and the Illusionist. It turns out Nadu is just really good without it, and even a fair Nadu with cards like Bristly Bill, who remember and Scythecat Cup. So those have been the main archetype changes and things that I've enjoyed this year. But there's one more change that I've started making to my cube most recently. This year, we had the Vintage Cube live that Ultimate Guard ran at MagicCon Vegas. This really got me thinking about what I want from my cube. If you don't remember it, that was the Vintage Cube draft that people on MitGo could win places for. Then at the draft, you got to keep what you opened. The cube they ran for that event was awesome. It's another cube topic we've done a full podcast breakdown on, but the gist is, it wasn't trying to be the most powerful cube of all time, it was trying to be the most MitGo Vintage Cube of all time. It was kind of like a love letter to the history of the MitGo Vintage Cube. For me, it was awesome. There was a bunch of older cards in there that you just don't see in cube anymore, and this kind of reminded me, my cube is my cube. I can run what I want. So my goal for updates going forward is to run more cards that I like. And while I probably can't run Jackal Pup anymore, cards like Elspeth Sun's Champion, Glorybringer, Joraga Treespeaker, Huntmaster of the Fells and Coercive Portal are all sweet cards that I've loved cubing with, but technically aren't the most optimal anymore. I've kind of reached the point where I don't care about that anymore. As long as they still make sense from a deck point of view and are not dreadful cards, then I'm going to consider running them. I also know that these cards aren't going to go 15th pick, because at least I will draft them. I'm really excited for Cube in 2025. At a time where it feels hard to keep up with the sheer amount of Magic being released and the different IPs that are coming into the game, it's reassuring to know that Cube will always be Cube, and it will always be the best format in Magic, no matter what the rest of Magic is doing. Thank you all very much for watching. This has been 2SweetMTG. Please remember to like, share and subscribe, and until next time, we'll see you all soon. Goodbye.